Hey y'all, I thought I would come on here and let's tell you a little bit about what's going on here. I haven't been online, as you well know, except a little tiny bit, and it's more than just NaNoWriMo. NaNoWriMo is National Write a Novel in a month, and I sometimes participate. I've done it for over 20 years. Sometimes I do it, sometimes I don't. This year I decided to, and I'm kind of stuck now. But that's not why I haven't been on the last week and a half. Those of you that know me know that I was really shook up when the election happened and Donald Trump became the nominee. And I've talked about this before. I was really upset the morning that it was announced. And I came on here and did a live stream with a bunch of you who were also very upset. The main reason that all of us were upset was because the possible nomination of RFK Jr., Department of Health and Human Services. And that's exactly what happened. He got nominated to be over our health. Why would we be upset about him doing that? Well, it's a lot. Anybody who has a chronic ailment is going to be upset because there's a lot that went down that when you look at it, it's okay, so RFK Jr. has kind of been around politics for years. He has self-styled himself as the Kennedy spokesperson, even though when other Kennedys have said they think he's nuts. And he's said a lot of things through the years, and I'm just like, yeah, is that the brainworm driving that bus or what? So for me, the thought that he is going to be in charge of preventing me from getting a biologic, from getting low level chemo, or the other treatments that they give you if you have mast cell, it just terrifies me. So this week I've done a lot of reading on his stances on so many things. Some of them I agree with, so many of them I don't. First, the good, and then the bad, and the ugly. Okay, the good. He's talking about changing it. So Medicare, Medicaid, insurance, that if you're overweight or you have a chronic illness, that you should have financial help to buy through your insurance, whatever that might be, to buy healthy foods and to have a gym membership. I am all about both of those things for so many reasons. I wish we had a decent gym here. I would go. But instead, we got this place that's upstairs and I can't climb stairs. That kind of defeats the purpose for me. So there you go. He's going to do those two things. I think those are going to go a long way towards helping people. That's the good. He wants to help people get off drugs. And he has some expertise in that because he was hooked on heroin, I believe it was, for many years and managed to kick it. I'm not going to kick him for that because that's an admirable thing is getting off those types of substances. Where he goes to the bad is where he says that he will also be putting people who are addicted to the kind of drugs we take, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, and people who use Adderall, things like that, that are legally prescribed by their doctors. He wants to put people in these places to get off of them and hold them there 3 or 4 years is what I was reading that he had said. And I have a problem with that for a couple of reasons. Number one, I have friends and family, especially family, that have gone into treatment for various substance abuse issues and ended up in sober living, didn't stay in sober living as long as he's talking about putting people in to ensure that they get off these things. It's voluntary. You shouldn't be forced to go into any of this because this is something that should be something you want to do. Okay, so that's the bad. He wants to force some things on people that aren't so bad, aren't so good. I don't have a problem with him talking about clean eating, about food, any of that, because I agree with him. I actually eat pretty clean because of the illness I have. I sometimes will react to pesticides. I can't do processed foods like my husband can. If I'm going to eat a hot dog, I have to make sure that the week heading up to that, I'm eating right. So that's why I go along with him for food and things, but when he starts talking about only using these woo-woo solutions for health, that's where I'm not down. I mean, I am not one of the urine drinkers, never will be. I don't believe in healing whatever by sniffing essential oils, doing sound bathing, any of that. If you want to do that stuff or that stuff makes you feel better on your own and you're over 18, go for it. Go do it. Go do it. No matter how crazy it may sound to us, if it brings you some kind of joy, do it. Just don't expect me to jump on board with it or try to force me to do it. And now the ugly. He's making all kinds of claims about autism being linked to vaccines, where over 100 studies have been done that disprove that. That was something that started with comedian actress Jenny McCarthy. Jenny McCarthy! People are treating her like she actually knows something. Let me tell you something. Apocryphal histories are not science. I'm a big believer in scientific studies. And because saying that we have to end all vaccinations is just ridiculous. We're going to see an uptick in whooping cough, measles, all sorts of vile things that have been pretty much eradicated before the vaccine, the anti-vax crowd came along. So glad I'm in Costa Rica where the vaccination of children from children's illnesses is mandatory. It's not optional. You have to do it to keep your child in school here, and you have to keep your child in school. You're not allowed to homeschool. It's not. It's something that require your child has to be in an accredited school. So here I am in a second world country that has better boundaries than the United States, first world country. So there is that. He just makes me nuts with some of the things that he has gotten into. I've got my notes I'm looking at. Okay. So last week, going back to the election, I spent the week doing like this, hugging myself, doing art, doing different things, just trying to raise my own spirits. I know from talking to a lot of you that a lot of you were doing the exact same thing. I perceive we're going to have to keep doing that. And to get over this because all of us are fearful of this guy. We're more fearful of that guy and some of the other ones that Trump is appointing than we actually are Trump, I think. Like Matt Gates. Just can't get over that one. Matt Gates looks like he's Dracula's date rapey brother. Okay. And all of the allegations about the sex trafficking, the sexual abuse, all of that being made against him tell me he doesn't have any business being in a that type of position. Christy Nome, the dog killer, and others that he's appointed. I'm just like going, what? All I can say is a lot of these people are very ineffective in what they do. So that is the positive we can draw is with the first Trump administration, he also put a bunch of ridiculous, highly ineffectual people in, and very little got done beyond him changing the Supreme Court. And that's a big baddie for sure. But he could have done a whole lot worse. So I am thinking we're probably not going to suffer the damage that I thought, even with Project 2025. It's by our friends at the Heritage Foundation, and they're not the most successful people on the planet in how they implement things. So it's just going to be more of the same, I think. Nice, thank you. Yes, that's my heating pad. You're going to go steal it. My cat, I have to beat him to get him away from the heating pad. If I have to use the heating pad, well, not beat him, but push him away and he bites me. It's not a pretty sight. So I threw my back out this week. So that's something that happens to me when I get really agitated. I think it's something to do with holding the back muscles tight because I'm tense. And that was a hard thing. So take care of yourself. Make sure that you're getting enough sleep, enough to eat, enough to drink. You're getting the right kind of everything, that you're focusing your mind on something beyond this stupid election. Last night, speaking of focusing ourselves beyond something, we watched the Jake Paul Mike Tyson fight on Netflix. Oh my word. I used to watch boxing back in the 80s and sometimes in the 90s. And it was always an interesting thing to observe. My husband always liked boxing, so we would watch it. And I remember when Mike Tyson first came on the scene, and the announcers always say, "Don't go to your refrigerator, folks. If you go to your refrigerator, you're gonna miss it. This guy knocks people out in the first round." And seeing Mike just really just mow down some folks. Now, I don't like Jake Paul at all. I didn't like him a bit. Last time was like, cream him, murder him, first round, clean his clock for him, please, Mike. Jake Paul is another YouTuber that just flaps his jaws and says ridiculous, stupid things all the time. His opinions are just ridiculous. He calls himself the problem child. He came to my attention yet again during the election because he was sniping and growling about how he couldn't vote from Puerto Rico, like that was a thing, instead of realizing that he could have easily have voted by mail from Puerto Rico as a legal resident of America, the American mainland. Puerto Rico is a U.S. territory. There is nothing to stop you if you are a citizen from voting from there. Nothing. You can download your ballot and mail it in. Easy. Send it to the embassy. Let them mail it in for you. Let them put it in a diplomatic pouch. So I got pretty annoyed with Jake Paul during the election and some of the things that were coming out of his mouth. So last night I was wanting Iron Mike to clean his clock. And I thought what was interesting about it was it seemed like everybody else wanted the same thing. Every time they would stop and talk to a celebrity, it would be like, oh, yeah, Mike's going to beat him. I remember they showed Shaquille O'Neal and uh, Gronk, Gronkowski, and they both were wanting Mike Tyson to punch out Jake Paul. I think Jake Paul has pissed off a ton of people. Then he came out in the most ridiculous vehicle, some custom vehicle. They drove him to the ring, or at least part of the way there. He's wearing $1 million lame shorts with diamonds on them. It was just like, why are you doing this? Then it dawned on me, he's doing this because he thinks he's an agent provocateur. He thinks that he gets the most attention by being the most ridiculous. And I guess it works because his YouTube channel was crazy successful, and so is some of the other social media ventures that he's been part of. He made $40 million last night with that stupid fight. And I like the idea of Tyson coming on in his 50s and doing this because it shows a great deal of courage on his behalf. I don't care if they were paying him also a pile of money. When you get a certain age and people write you off, oh, it's just a senior citizen, just push them on out. Let's not pay them any mind to them. That's a bunch of baloney. We have a lot of wisdom. We've done a ton of really horrible things in our life and really good things, and can say, hey, this worked for me. Hey, this didn't work for me. Hey, don't do that because A, B, and C will happen. Well, how do you know that? How do you know this is going to work out for me? Like, because I've been there. I have been there, done that, got the stupid t-shirt. Um, I watched all the earlier fights and got to see everybody on Twitter and various places fussing about all the fights before Tyson's. Have you never watched a boxing match? There's always people on the down cards from the main event. There always are. Starts off with the least important to the next, the most important, then it goes on until they bring out the headliners. That was pretty standard. It was nice seeing Ice-T, not seeing him, hearing his voice when he was doing I guess you'd call it the color commentary to explain both guys before the match. I thought that was pretty decent. I've always liked him. He is one of those does not give any F's people. He is who he is. What you see is what you get, baby. And I like people that are like that. I don't like people that put on false persona like Jake Paul. And I really thought that Tyson was going to do more than he did, but in the end, his age, it did him in. He did okay the first 3 rounds. And the first round, I thought he did quite well. He brought fire and fury to the ring and showed why we used to love him back in those days. And it was a nice time watching the fight, even though Mike lost. I was reminded of a wonderful memory I have from living in Germany and being pregnant with my son, driving to meet my husband in Munich on the Autobahn in my old red Mercedes I had back in those days, had a sunroof, um, driving all bundled up for the winter and it's snowing on the Autobahn, driving through the snow, listening to HBO's Fight Night on the radio because Mike Tyson was fighting. It's brought back memories, nice memories of when my husband and I were dating and early in our marriage. I was thinking about that last night. So sadly, he did not win. There are a couple more things I wanted to say about that. One thing I was really happy about with the fight, okay? Tyson is none of those folks. He just is who he is. You could take what he says to the bank. He is himself. He doesn't give any F's. He just is who he is fully. And I like that. I've always liked that about him, though. He's always been that way. Troubled history or not, he has definitely had a troubled history because he was married to a lady named Robin Givens who made all kinds of allegations of abuse, overlooking the fact that if he'd have hit her, she'd have been in the ER. Um, so that was a really messy, nasty divorce, and she exposed a lot of things about him that I didn't want to know. A lot of trash, and he's had a couple marriages that I know of, and it's been kind of controversial through the years. But I will say I got a kick out of him biting his glove last night. Was fighting with one of his gloves he had in his mouth. And I was like looking at it going, what is that about? What is that about? But afterwards I asked him what it was about. And he said he had a biting fetish. Obsession was it? I think the word he used. Biting obsession, fetish, whatever. And I kind of laughed because that's kind of how he is. Now, Jake Paul redeemed himself just a little bit with me because he came out at the end when it was all said and done, hugged Mike, and started talking about what a great athlete he was, what an inspiration, his greatest of all time. He started really praising his opponent and saying the most lovely, gracious things about him. I was glad to see that. People don't do that enough these days. Instead of coming, I was like, ha ha. Paul actually behaved with decency and class. So I gained a little bit of respect for him again. And I started thinking, he's 27 years old. Hell, he's a young'un. He doesn't even know who he is fully at that point. I hope he continues maturing. That's all I can say. Because being known as a problem child all your life is not going to be a good thing. The other thing that kept me occupied this week from about the time that the election happened was the next day. Um, that Wednesday, I went to Playa Grande for just a little while with my husband, and it started raining, and we had to pack up and go home. And that's too bad because I really enjoy my little hidden estuary I like to go into and sit down on the logs and watch all the scuttling crabs and things and search for sea beans. I didn't get a chance to do that. We were out there maybe 30 minutes before it started pouring down rain. And until this morning, it hasn't let up. It's just rained almost continually. It's either raining hard or raining soft. But it's been raining almost continually since Wednesday until this morning. And we've had a little rain today, but not a tremendous amount. This is the end of rainy season. Usually, excuse me, we have the end of rainy season happens from about mid-October until early November, and then it's over with. It's like somebody flips a switch and it's all sunshine and loveliness. And we should have been having that already this year. We should have been. But we are having this intense rainy season ending, complete with a tropical storm that formed off the coast and dumped all kinds of moisture on us. And we are facing, it looks like, 2 more days of rain at least. What's happened here? And I know you haven't seen it in the US news because the US news is screeching about Spain's uh, flooding, which is terrible, and things that have happened elsewhere, wildfires on the East Coast, things. We have thousands that have been displaced now because of flooding here. Because of all that water with no place for it to go, the soil is saturated. The actual roadways, Route 1, the Rutas 1, Rutas 2, some of the other routes and roads, they're cracking and falling apart, and things are falling in, and roadways are gone. There are mudslides all over major highways. All sorts of crazy stuff has happened. I'm lucky. I'm here in Tamarindo. They've upgraded a lot of our drainage in this area because it is a huge tourism mecca. We upgraded 5 or 6 years ago when we put a huge French drain around the house. Best decision ever. We don't get any water standing in our yard. We don't get it flooding into the house any longer. We get none of that. It just flows completely out the property at the other end. But others on either side of us are not so lucky. There's been major flooding in Santa Cruz and in Nicoya, which are just south of us. And that road is closed. One of the bridges is gone, I understand. And to get there, I usually have to take a series of one-lane bridges. I'm not confident that any of those are left. That road is closed. And for a long time, the road to Liberia that I take to go to PriceSmart and go shopping was completely shut because they had flooding in Berlin and in Philadelphia, which are two communities I have to pass to get to Liberia. The Guanacaste state that Tamarindo is part of is getting pounded. We have gotten so much rain, and the entire like central and northern stretches of the Pacific coastline are just destroyed, flooded out. It is a hot mess. How much of a hot mess is it? They closed the airport in Liberia. Okay, the Liberian airport is very different than the airport in San Jose. The airport in San Jose gets a lot of flights, all sorts of stuff. It's a major tourism route, but all the discount carriers go through San Jose. Liberia is mostly legacy carriers and carriers from around the world. Very few discount flights come in and out there. That's why when I come home, I have to say, okay, what is going to be in my budget to buy airline tickets? I'm going to have to look and search and wait for them to go to the price range I want because flying in and out of Liberia can be a very expensive proposition. And during tourist season, it's crazy the number of flights that I handle there. So what's happened with this driving, pounding rain and the flooding is it's damaged the runway at the Liberia airport. And they closed the airport because the runway is damaged now. They can't use it. They were getting ready to resurface the runway during the night. That has been a thing that's been on the agenda for a long time here. Well, it's going to be a little bit more than resurfacing the the runway. The good news, they have all the material there and the equipment because they were getting ready to do this anyway. Um, the airlines and the tourist agencies will not tell people the truth about what's happening and how long it's going to be. They're just saying, "Oh, we're having a temporary shutdown because of the rain and the flooding." And they told everybody it was shut till 8 o'clock. So we're almost on 8 o'clock here. I guarantee it's going to be shut at least till Monday, even though they're telling everybody it's going to be open tonight. And here's the thing about that. We had a sinkhole happen in Liberia, at the Liberia airport, in the middle of the runway, like 5 or 6 years ago. I don't remember exactly when. I think it was maybe 5 years ago. A sinkhole opened up on the runway, and there's only one runway at the Liberia airport, like most airports here. And it was during high season. It really just shut everything down because they couldn't land there. It took them almost 2 weeks to get it fixed because this is Costa Rica. Everything's done by committee, everything takes a long time. And that's what happened. So this, they're telling everybody till tonight. I guarantee you, minimum of Monday, more likely a week or so down the pike would be my guess on all this. So I've spent the last 2 or 3 days talking to tourists that are coming. All of us that live here have been doing this on the different tourist sites and saying, don't come here, don't come here, don't come here if you're coming to the northern or central Pacific coast. The bridge at Hako is damaged. There's flooding it near Hako. Um, that road is shut. Like I said, the major road that goes through Santa Cruz, Nicoya, that comes up to here, shut. Liberia, parts of Liberia, the road has been shut open. And the same thing with Route 1 going up the middle of the country, the Pan American Highway. Right now, all of the major highways are shut between 6 p.m. and 6 a.m. every night because of the flooding and the damage. And I don't foresee that ending. They're saying another week on that, even. Now, some of these things have managed to get open and start scraping the motorway and doing what they need to do. But like I love to say about Costa Rica, and I love Costa Rica, I love it here. It's a second world nation trying to be a first world nation that is sometimes third world nation. And this is just one of those things. These repairs take a while. The repair people are working around the clock. I'm just pleased we didn't lose electric or water during this. We have in years past when there's been um, like a tropical storm come through. We've lost, I remember losing power for like 2 days at one point. We didn't lose any of that. It just maybe flickered on and off, just like Netflix last night with their service while watching the fight kept going on and off, on and off. It kept the stream kept freezing. That happened a little bit with the electric here during this whole time. So that's why I've been updating this relentlessly on my Facebook and my brand new Blue Sky account because this is the thing I'm using to distract myself from all the crap going on right now in the world that's stressing me out. I can't change any of this. I can't change a damn thing except my own mind. So I'm trying to come to terms with this and figure out a way forward through all of this. I think I've come up with one for my health issues. And everything else, I'm just going to take the wait and see. Now, a word of caution if you sign up for Blue Skies. Everybody's going, Blue Sky is the best thing ever. There's no hateful people here. Well, there are and there aren't. Last night well, not last night, night before last. Got to back up. Night before last, while I'm updating and talking to people who are coming in and saying, look, what will they do if my flight is supposed to come into Liberia and I'm getting on the plane? What are they going to put me down as? I'm saying they're sending a lot of flights to San Jose. If you get to San Jose, the best thing you can do is to walk across the terminal, buy a ticket with Sansa, and fly here because the roads are still closed in that area. Fly. It's going to cost you $70, $80, whatever it is, and you'll get here. and people saying, "I'm trapped here. What do I do?" So we kind of like have done, I guess you'd say, citizen activism. So I'm busy with that 2 nights ago, and I get a message that Paul Stanley wants to talk to me. If you're not familiar with rock and roll, Paul Stanley is the guitarist and singer, well, one of the guitarists and singer for Kiss. Okay. I don't like Kiss's music. I never have. It's just never done it for me. There's nothing wrong with it per se. It's just not my taste. I used to listen to Queen and Moody Blues, all kinds of other bands, but Kiss never did it for me. But they are the hardest working band in rock and roll. During one of these dreadful rainy seasons here, I'd seen an interview with Paul Stanley somewhere and thought he was hawking his book. I said, she sounds pretty good. So I downloaded the book, Face of Music. I read it, felt like I had a lot in common with him over certain things, certain aspects of growing up, and enjoyed the book. Friended him on Facebook, friended him on Twitter, occasionally make the comment on his content when it pops up. You guys know I love to paint. Guys, you guys know I'm into art, all that stuff. So he paints too, and I love to see his paintings because he's got a real impressionistic style that is interesting. So he's a very interesting guy. And one of the things that's happened since I started doing that is in all these social media things is I get Paul Stanley fakers. They show up, they pretend to be Paul Stanley, and they want me to kiss their rear end and tell them I'm the biggest fan ever. And I'm kind of like, no, I don't even like your music. I like your art. I liked your writing, your music, your Motown. I like your Motown sound a whole lot better, even though your voice is kind of shot. Um, so I always have fun with these guys, and for a while I was doing live streams where I would live stream when I was talking to one of them, and I may do that again because it's so much fun, especially if you're coming up with something utterly ridiculous. So anyway, Blue Sky, I signed up for it this week because Twitter is it's a pile of you know what. And I had a good time. All these people I knew were there. I friended them all. The sad thing is there's no blue check mark for people who really are who they are. So you take your chances. And I got so many fakers. And that night I had like 4 or 5 romance scammers pop up out of the blue wanting to talk to me. And I'm kind of like, talk to the hand. And I started putting up my thing where it says, thank you for contacting me. Now look at my website, look at my book, look at this, look at that. And stopped talking to any of them and blocked them when they got naughty. The Paul Stanley one showed up and said, thank you for being my fan. What is it you like about me? And I was like, knitter, please. I basically, just from the get go, I just had enough with the romance scammers that day and just said, stop talking to me. You're a faker. And it was funny. We started fighting hard. I should have done a video of that because it was downright funny. It was hysterical, the fighting that went on. And he was telling me what an awful person I was and stuff. And I was just kind of laughing, going, you contacted me. I did not contact you, sort of thing. And he was like, well, and I was like, you're acting just like you did the one time I did meet you, which is true because back when I was 16 and newly married, yeah, think about that one for a minute, to my ex, we were backstage at a Kiss concert and I got to observe the band members, and it wasn't a pretty picture. Paul was kind of hair and glare then. And then he really lost his damn mind. It was really funny. I said, I've never met you. I don't know who you are, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, really? You meet all these people all the time. You don't know if you've met me or not, if you were the real Paul Stanley. So we're going back and forth. And then I got up the next morning and started writing a magnus opus to send to him to tell him off, to tell him cram it, ram it, rotate it, and break the handle off because I was still kind of mad because our fight had gone on for quite a while. And I looked to upload it on my Blue Sky um, private message page, and he had been banned. Deleted account. Yep, yep, yep. So that's my only problem with Blue Sky this week, is it does seem like there are a ton of romance scammers, a ton. And a lot of them are masquerading, not so much as the Paul Stanleys of this world. I had one that masqueraded as a political writer I like. I had one that masqueraded as a Fox News contributor who I don't like, and I couldn't figure out why they were there and they were trying to friend me. They're trying to push cryptocurrency, and they're not them, they're somebody else. The same thing with the political writer. And then a guy who said he was from Midland, Texas, and wanted to know where I was from. And I said, I'm from a little bit of here, there, and everywhere. And I was not really giving him much info or answering him much. And he said, Oh, great. Where in Midland are you? Dumbass. Did you not read my reply? So that's something I'm not liking about Blue Sky. I'm waiting for Blue Sky to figure it out, how they're going to verify celebrities' accounts and how they are going to deal with the romance scammer thing. Like I said, I've always fought with these guys. I should put up a scammer hall of shame somewhere because I've definitely got all the photos and the weird stuff to back it up. I should really publish my fake Paul Stanley conversation because it was pretty funny. Even though I was just like not having it, I was just mad and just kind of letting him have it because he was one of many that was coming out of the woodworks that night. Um, so how are you doing? Are you getting through this time? What are you using to amuse yourself? I know you guys aren't running around talking about a flood that's trashing everything, but I know that the last time I did a live stream, there were a lot of us that were really shook up about Trump being elected because of the RFK Jr. possibility. Or the bomb has landed. I hope you guys have made plans. I'm going to continue to make plans and to stay on top of my situation with my own health. I encourage you to do the same. I'm thinking I'm going to start trying to go out and walk in the mornings a little bit on the paved road out here. Not the dirt one, but the main road. Once we get dry weather again, even if I have to haul out my damn walker to have balance, I think it would be a good thing. And I need to get the exercise. I need to get back to it, but I just have not been able to since I messed up my knee last year. The time has come, and we have to be at our fighting best if we're going to deal with things like this. We have to be sleeping, eating right, getting enough water, exercising our bodies and our minds, doing what we need to do for our health in order to have the best lives we can. I love you guys. I hope to come back to doing live streams maybe on either tomorrow morning or Tuesday. I haven't decided yet. And we'll just go from there. I'm not Mike Tyson, but I swear I definitely feel his situation and not having the stamina and the resistance and everything else that I had when I was young and not bouncing back like I did. That's the sucky thing about that. Oh, about getting older, except that if you're older, you've survived. And we're going to have to be strong and survive a little bit longer, I think. Love you guys. Have a wonderful weekend.